Hit live.
All right,
A
go
live
ahead.
click or hit live. Are we on?
Yes.
Okay. It is 7 o'clock on a foggy Monday evening in January of 2022, the 24th to be exact. And this is another meeting of the Stayton City Council. I'm going to wrap my knuckles on the desk, call the meeting to order, and ask if we could have a flag salute. And would either one of you guys that are there lead on, please?
Yeah, we'll do that. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America,
And
and to the
republic for which it stands,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, councilors. Okay, under announcements, are there any additions to the agenda? Are there any declarations of ex-parte contact or conflicts of interest or bias or anything else? Okay. Under appointments, I hope all of you have had a chance to look at this recent agenda, the most recent agenda for this meeting, which has applications for two people. One to the Parks and Recreation Board, Stephen Sims, and the Public Art Commission, which is Shelley Crick. And I hope all of you have looked at those. And I would ask the council's, what is that word I like? Affirmation of an appointment of those two people to those two city boards. So if someone would like to,
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Is there a second, please?
Seconded.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, a second. Okay, a motion and a second then to appoint Stephen Sims to the Parks and Recreation Board and Shelley Crick, the Public Arts Commission. Is there any discussion? Okay, Alyssa, would you poll the council, please, on that?
Sure. Counselor McDonald,
Yes.
Counselor Quigley,
Yes.
Counselor Patty,
yes, thank you.
Counselor Hook.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, thank you. Is there any public comment at this point? And again, Alyssa, is there, I see a new face, Jeff.
He's with Mackenzie this evening
Oh, okay,
regarding the
all right,
facilities
thank you.
needs, but we do not have any public comment this evening.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I didn't realize he was with Mackenzie. We could have let him talk anyway, but that's fine. Okay, consent agenda, January 3rd, 2022, city council minutes. Has everyone had a chance to look at those? And if we could get some action on those, we'll move along into the rest of our meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented. Ms. Counselor Patty?
Okay,
Counselor Hook seconds.
all right, thank you. Motion and a second to approve the consent agenda for January 3rd as presented. Alyssa, would you poll the council, please?
Yes. Counselor Hook,
Yes.
Counselor Patty,
Yes.
Counselor Quigley,
Yes.
Counselor McDonald.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
All right, thank you, folks. There is no public hearing tonight. Under general business, the Public Facilities Master Plan next steps. And Alyssa, would you give us a staff report on that, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a topic that is coming back to you. We had initially brought this forward back on November 15th, 2021, and the council at that time had requested further information from staff and McKenzie regarding the proposed next steps. So in the 2019-22 City Council goals, they identified a goal of improving and expanding city facilities with the short-term goal of conducting a facility needs assessment and midterm goals of assessing sites for a future city hall and funding options. McKenzie did begin working on this project in early 2020, and as we all know, COVID-19 slowed down the project tremendously. At their October 11th, you guys held a special session, and McKenzie provided an update on the project, which included results of the recent community open house and the survey opportunity. Initially, let's see, I covered that, sorry. The purpose of phase one of the project was to determine whether there was a need to address our current city facilities or if our city facilities were sufficient for future growth. Phase one of the assessment has determined that the city has a need for a new facility, which they recommend one building that would contain all city departments. Following that October meeting, we met with McKenzie and spoke about the next steps for this project. McKenzie provided staff with the list below that's included in your staff report that regards to identifying the site and a conceptual plan and updated cost estimate. Additionally, there were two optional components that were also proposed by McKenzie, which we did not include in the table above. And those were the facility tours and a flyby video rendering. So once completion of phases 2 and 3 are complete, the goal would be to find and secure funding to move forward with this project. The advantage of continuing forward with the momentum we've already started on this project now is being prepared for any potential doors that could open for funding on the project. I'm going to ask Susanna to pop on now, and she's going to talk a little bit more about the fiscal impact for us. And I also want to mention that there are two representatives from McKenzie on the call tonight. So if you have questions, they're here and can answer them. Susanna?
Hello. So we have the facilities fund especially set up for this project. The city has been putting money in there for a while now. There's just over $600,000, 680, I think it is, or $60,000 that are sitting there. That is to go toward future facilities. So by doing these two phases, that last two phases, so that we're key ready, as Lance has put it, so that we can begin the process of finding the funding, knowing exactly what our funding is going to be, so we can make some strategic plans on how we can move forward in getting our new city hall combined building. But we need these next two phases to be able to make that decision. There's enough there in the fund to do this, and there's still plenty there to help us kind of figure out a plan going forward. Ideally, if we got it in this fiscal year, then we would be able to be more effective and figure out how to budget next year and planning to go forward.
Okay. Thank you.
It will be a budget adjustment, and I am bringing a budget adjustment back anyway for the sand beds and things like that. So, because we do need to adjust the budget a little bit.
All right, thank you. Alyssa, what's next?
Well, next up, we're done with our staff report. There is public comment would be the next.
Okay. Is there any public comment on this proposal?
It does not look like it.
Okay. Council discussion.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilor?
I have a couple of questions. Under phase 2, I have a couple of concerns about the cost here. Under the box there on phase 2, One additional presentation to city council, $3,000. Can someone please elaborate on what that is? They're charging us to come present to get a job?
This would be presenting the, talking about the site, identifying the site. So they would do all the work, and then they would come forward to talk to the council and present the recommended site. And Kathy or Jeff, if I am wrong on that, feel free to jump in.
Oh, that's absolutely correct. It would be a presentation of the final findings. And so we would be presenting presentation materials, putting together presentation materials, as well as all the a debrief of the site selection as well. So it's not to get the job, but it's to present to you guys the findings of the project and how things, where the project transpired.
Okay, so that'd be the same consideration for phase 3 then, where you have $3,500 for social media outreach and $3,000 for another presentation to council?
That's right. And then the social media outreach is very similar to what we did previously during the community outreach. This is just another avenue that we find that is better able to reach more of your voters. And therefore we will gather all the information that we get from all the poll results and any social media outreach that we do, and then be able to present back to you on the findings.
Okay. Thank you.
Question from this end is, even with phase 2 and 3, we're not into any engineering plans, are we? Even with a site picked or identified, we're quite a ways from building a facility. Am I correct?
That's correct, Mayor.
I mean,
There are preliminary exercises that we do, and we encourage most jurisdictions to go through this process of going through a conceptual design effort, really get your community to be supportive, and then also give you a firm number instead of just a target number, so that you can go out for funding, the appropriate funding.
okay, that's fine for now. Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes. Hello.
Hello, it's Councilor Orr.
Yes.
I'm not exactly sure who this question would be for, so whoever feels comfortable answering. So in phase 3, is part of that the community outreach, is the social media stuff, is this any type of marketing or kind of explaining to the community like why this is necessary? Because I feel like we're gonna need to really, I don't know if get creative is the word, but I really feel like we're gonna need to really do some outreach and explaining to the community why this is necessary, why we should spend this money, and what they're going to get for this if we're going to even attempt to ask them for any sort of bonds or levies for this. So is that part of this?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. So if you recall, we've had 2 community outreach meetings already to kind of educate the public on why you guys need these new facilities, what your current situation is. And so each community outreach meetings is building upon that. So that we're continually educating the public of what your needs are, as well as also getting them excited about what this new facility might look like and how it's going to better serve the community as well. And so this specific community outreach for phase 3 will be targeted towards, now that you have selected a site, what could potentially this facility look like for the community, and get community input so that they feel like they are also being participants and having an input on what this looks like in your community.
Do you have any ideas on how to get more engagement from the community? Because I don't feel like we have had very many people. I did have someone mention to me that they tried to get on virtually and they were never able to get the link for that last meeting. So I did point them to this survey that they could do, but they weren't. I'm worried that we're not getting enough engagement and that it's gonna like after we make all these decisions is gonna be when people come to us.
Mhm. Yeah, I can definitely appreciate your concern, and I think one thing is the social outreach, social media outreach, trying to get to more of your younger community members as well. We might try to do more work with your staff to make sure that there's more flyers out or there's more notice for these community outreach meetings. Maybe instead of just 2 weeks or 4 weeks before, we start really spreading the word out a little bit earlier and really putting up signs for it and putting up more social media postings and different things like that. So, but we definitely have some suggestions that we can work with your staff to make sure that we can get as many community members as possible to participate.
And then just one follow-up, have you considered doing any surveying of the community?
Door to door.
That's not something that Mackenzie has previously done, but we can definitely discuss with your staff. I know we've worked with other communities that have actually taken our survey itself and printed it out and went and passed it out to certain neighborhoods. So that may be something that we can discuss with your staff of potentially doing.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, this is Counselor Hook.
Go ahead.
So I had heard something about like Councilor Ort mentioning that we might be asking for bonds or levies. I just want to make sure that we are definitely, that this project isn't being focused on that kind of thing, because I don't think that we're going to get that, honestly.
No, I think I can speak to that. I think that this phase 2 and 3 will give us the picture of what we need, and then look at grant opportunities, see what's happening with the federal government's moving a lot of money at this time. It might be strategically that we might be able to find something. Mackenzie can give us suggestions on ways to look. That's kind of what the advantage of finishing this up gives us, that time through next fiscal budget to really get creative, see what we can do. So no, Paige, it's not just one way and that's it. We need time to get creative, and having a real good visual for the community to understand what we're building and what it looks like, for the staff to do, for you guys as well to see, we get a real tangible idea of what this building looks like. Then that gives us some momentum for helping figure out the funding to get the buildings completed. Is that right, Kathy? Okay.
That's correct, yes.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Susanna.
You're welcome.
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilor Patty. I had one real quick.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, and this is going to be for Kathy. Not to get in the weeds too much, but for social media outreach, what does that look like? What kind of engagement with the public are we going to see in that? That might be helpful for me to understand.
Sure. So in this phase 3 portion, what we would be looking for is input about exterior character of the building. So we'll start looking, I believe in your council packet, there were some images of perspective renderings. So before we even get to that perspective renderings, what we would do is on the social media postings, have options of 4 different, maybe different city halls around the surrounding area. Look at also any iconic or historic buildings within Stayton, put them up and have them rank these images and let us know why they chose those images, so that we get a concept of what did you like about this building, or what do you think about this building that you would like to translate into this new civic center or facility. And we'll tailor the conversation so that these are selected appropriately, whatever highlights that they would like. Maybe it's the lighting that they like, or it's the linear form, or it's the historic nature of the building, or the brick, or different things. We'll have them start talking about those, and we'll tailor those questions appropriately so that it's easy for us to pick up on what they liked about those facilities. And then we'll take those and then put them back into what a perspective rendering will look like, really honing in on some of those characters.
Okay, I like that. And a follow-up, if I may, Mr. Mayor. Kathy, is there a part of that process where you can kind of showcase some of our deficiencies within our facilities for the city? Because ultimately, that's what the community needs to see is what the need is here. So if that can be a part of that engagement, that makes me feel a little bit better about that.
Yeah, so at every one of these city council meetings, we'll remind the staff and the community of the current conditions. So whether it's through the previous slides that we shared with them in the community outreach meetings of, some of the deficiencies, the code deficiencies, the ADA deficiencies, all of those can be readdressed so that anybody who's new to the whole process has a reminder. So yeah.
Thank you.
Well, Kathy, this whole thing is about selling, then, isn't it? And how do we sell this idea and these concepts to a community that's probably going to be a little hesitant, if nothing more than just the cost of these things? And I like your idea of the outreach, but if you're going to come to all these meetings, our meetings, I would put together a film loop or something, a slide presentation that could go out. People could watch at any time, and just sell these different aspects of what our needs are, and maybe what some of these pictures, photos in here, what other cities have done of comparable size. It's just a thought.
It's actually a part of our process as well. We have always recommended, along with our survey, that you have a link to one of the city council meetings where we have presented previous findings and different things, as well as the report that is actually currently in its draft state that will be sent to you all of what's been completed to date of this needs assessment as well. So you will definitely have those available, and we recommend that they become available for your community as well.
Okay. All right. Okay, I'll go with that. That's fine. Thank you. Someone else? Other thoughts and questions for Amy from McKinsey? How did I know it was McKinsey? Because it's on the wall behind her. That was easy. Okay. Anything else in that part of it? Where is my script? Council discussion. Although I guess that's what we're doing now with back and forth with Amy from McKinsey. Any other discussion? Well, should we move towards some decision then? What would you folks like to do? Staff has put together 3 options. One is a motion to the staff to move forward with phase 2 and 3 of the facilities needs assessment, or the same thing with modifications, or choose not to move forward at this time.
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilor Hook.
Yes, go ahead, please.
I would like to make a motion to authorize staff to move forward with phases 2 and 3 of the facilities needs assessment.
Okay, so option 1 there, right? Okay, thank you. Is there a second, please? I've got a motion.
Mr. Mayor, as Councilor Patty, I'll second that motion.
All right, I've got a motion and a second to authorize staff to move forward with phases 2 and 3 of the facilities needs assessment. Any discussion? Any more discussion?
Mr. Mayor.
Counselor?
Mr. Mayor, I wanted to ask Susanna where the other $15,000 is going to come from.
Get my camera and come back on. That will come from the facilities fund. We currently, the beginning fund balance was 680,000, just over. And that's where all the project has been done. to date is in the facilities fund. So we'll just bring it back with the other budget adjustments to increase the budget a little, about 15 or so thousand more, because we had 50,000 in this current budget to complete the project. So we just have to take it up a little tiny bit more. And it should still leave us over 600 easy for future. Well, a little less than the roof.
Okay. I guess I just have a concern with spending 65 grand to tell somebody that we need to have a new city hall. I mean, I know we do. I've been here for a long time. I've watched it. I know the reasons for it. Seems like an awful lot of money for what we're going to have at the end. I hope the product's good.
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilor Patty. I share Councilor Quigley's reservation on that as well, but, I see this, the different facilities, and the big thing is that the community needs to know what we need. And, like you, I hope that this product gets us where we need to be with the community, to where we can really explain this to them, and they also can see the need based on photos and things like that. In my conversations with other folks, and they don't seem to really be aware of the city facilities and their current status. So I'm hoping that this brings some awareness to the community.
This is Councilor Hook, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
So I also share those same concerns. I look at this as not so much trying to convince the community that we need like more money from them, but letting them know what we're planning, and then using some of these really nice things that Mackenzie's going to be making to go and get money elsewhere. So the more that we're like, the investment that we're making right now is going to probably help us get some money, because we'll be able to present things for these grant opportunities and to try and sell it to other people that have money.
Okay, thank you.
And Kathy, isn't this also gonna basically have the plans ready to go for the architect by the time we're ready? I mean, this does a lot of pre-legwork for them as well, correct?
Correct. You're setting yourself up to move right into construction documents as soon as you get your funding in place, so that you don't have a lag between conceptual design and spending all this effort. This will translate right into construction documents right away.
Yes, I hope that helps. It doesn't feel like it's just that much for talking to the community. It's actually giving the architect the shovel-ready material of what we want. There's more fine tuning once you get to the architect stage of actually building, but so hopefully that helps a little bit. It's not 65,000 to talk to everybody in the community.
One last question then, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Does staff or does Mackenzie have any sites predetermined already? Possible sites predetermined, identified?
Mm-hmm.
And how many sites do we have?
You want to address that, Kathy?
Sure. So in the previous, at the end of our last study, we identified two different sites. One was where your current library and your community center is located. That was one site where you've already owned the land. So we looked at that property. There's definitely enough space there to do so. And then the dog park that is located towards the south of Stayton, but still kind of on the fringes of the downtown core area, is another area that we looked at as well. Those are both city-owned properties. We have not looked at any other properties that are not city-owned, but it's not to say that they cannot be added within the discussion.
Okay, thank you.
What do you think of that, Gus? Anyway,
Mr. Mayor?
yes.
So with that in mind, like what does the next layer of site plan and adjacency block diagram for the two sites, like how is that different than what we've already identified the two sites. So what are you doing in phase 2 that's different? And then in phase 3, a detailed floor plan, but how are the two things different?
So we've identified large swaths of departments. So we identified that the police department needs so much square footage, and we did one large rectangular box, basically, of how it might sit on the site. Our next process in phase 2 is, if you go into your council packet on page 18, is we're now playing more in detail with rooms. So now we're looking more at departments like police locker rooms. Where are you entering for the building? Where's your evidence storage? How is patrol going to be located on the site? How's your city hall going to be located within that building, between the stacking of the first floor and the second floor? So we're starting to really look at the space adjacencies, how the building is starting to lay out. And then if you look at page 25, you'll see an example of the site plan. Now we're really getting into how many parking stalls do we have? What kind of landscape and plaza areas could you potentially have on this site? And how are you entering your site, egress and ingress, and really applying some of the initial code studies and easements that are identified for your specific site. So this is the next level of detail that we're adding to what we have already identified for your site.
This may have been answered already, maybe 2 or 3 times, but phase 2 and 3, when you're finished, does that give us what our public works people would probably call shovel-ready plans? In other words, architectural drawings or architectural plans or building plans?
So this will be still considered early conceptual design, which is not a construction document set. What you'll see is something like what we have on exhibits page 25 and 26, where you're starting to lay out the building and you have all your rooms and floor plans set. But we haven't identified what those wall types are for a contractor to actually come and build the building itself. So there'll still be quite another, probably 9 to 10 months of design work, construction document, what you are referring to as shovel-ready kind of drawings. And then you'll have to go through the permitting process and different things like that. But what this does, the exhibits on page 25 and 26 really is showing is getting you a more accurate cost estimate. Now we have more tangible numbers, tangible square footage, tangible numbers of lockers that we're putting in to help with that number as well. Mm-hmm.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, can I just add something real quick? And I just want to give it somewhat of an analogy, what they're going to be doing.
Okay.
This is much like our transportation master plan, much smaller, of course, because we're talking about a facility. But they're going to go out and they're going to do a survey with the public. They're going to talk to the public, our stakeholders, and they're going to determine what our stakeholders and everybody wants to see and where at. Much like we did with the roundabout or the lights and the different roundabouts in town, that's what we did. We had community engagement. The community shared their thoughts, what they'd like to see. The master plan was prepared, and we had renderings of what those items looked like throughout town. Much like what they're going to do. We did the same thing with the Mill Creek detention facility, the master plan that we prepared. That's much like we got the community together. The community gave their input on what they want to see built down there. Our consultant put together a master plan of that park, a rendering, if you will. This is what the park should be looking like. And that gives us the opportunity at that point to use that in presentation to go look for funds. They're not shovel ready, but that's the step before going to get shovel ready plans.
Okay, that's fine. That's wonderful.
I do have a follow-up, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Why wouldn't you just go to the conceptual plan? Like, why do we need to spend $12,000 on blocks and then another $12,000 for you to fill in the blocks? Why can't we just fill in the blocks while you got the blocks there?
I don't know.
I have somebody turn my colleague's camera or on Jeff for Jeff. He seems to be disabled, but he can definitely help me answer some of those questions as well. There we go. I think.
Come on, Jeff.
He should be popping on. There we go.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Wasn't sure if I should take that poorly or what. I was like, I'm clicking on the button, but I can't turn on my video. So the block diagram is our ability to go through and develop what the adjacencies are going to be. So if we're looking at the police department and the city council room and those sorts of things and trying to get them, the first thing that we do is try to like look big picture at the building and try to get those components kind of arranged. And we'll get really close. And when we meet with staff, there'll be some suggestions. We'll make those changes and whatnot, but they're really large components. And then once we get that dialed in, then we'll start to get into that. This is how big the closet needs to be. This is how big that elevator, whatever the different pieces are going to be. Some of that is too much detail for people to focus on at the onslaught. So the idea is to really start out kind of big and start to zero in until we get into that level of detail. And then once we get that, then we can kind of really go back to that site diagram that Kathy was describing. And now we know where the doors are going to be, where the windows are going to be, how the building is accessed on the site. So it's got a lot more detail than what was actually shown in the previous study.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Another question for the McKenzie people or staff. If not, are we done with this for the evening? Got a motion on the floor. If there's anything else, let's talk about it. Or shall we go to a vote? Motion is to go ahead with phase 2 and 3 of this plan. My script. There it is. Motion is to move forward with phase 2 and 3 of the facilities needs assessment. If there's anything else? Hey, Alyssa, would you poll the council on this, please?
Sure, Mr. Mayor. Counselor McDonald,
Yes.
Counselor Quigley,
Yes.
Counselor Ort,
Yes.
Counselor Patty,
Yes.
Counselor Hook.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay. Thank you, folks. Thank you, Mackenzie, for this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see you folks again soon, we hope.
Yes.
Okay. The next item is an award of contract for water treatment plant, the slow sand filter bed resanding project. Mr. Ludwig.
Thank you, Mayor. It's good to see the council this evening. I wish it was in person. I had a previous engagement though this evening, so I couldn't be there tonight. This project is not new to any of you. I think we've had conversations for the last several years. I think even since Councilor Quigley was previously on the city council regarding our sand filter bed issues that we have. Just a brief background for you. In '93, the sand filter beds at the water treatment plant 1 and 2 were constructed. And in '09, we built sand filter bed number 3. At each period, in 2090, the first 2 filter beds we put 3 feet of sand in it. That was in 1998. In 1993. In 2009, when we built filter bed number 3, they put 3 feet of sand in it. And since that time, we haven't put any sand in either of them until 2018 when we redid sand filter bed number 1. A couple of years ago in cleaning our filter beds, we found gravel in sand filter bed number 1. So we had to replace the sand in there. There was a foot of sand left at minimum. Every design standard in the country will call for anywhere between 18 inches and 24 inches of sand in your filter bed minimum before you go and resand. So we were well below the minimum standard with filter bed number 1. We went and we resanded that filter bed 2 years ago. We've got over 3 feet of sand in there currently. Sand filter bed number 2 has about 14 inches to 16 inches in it. So it's time for that sand filter bed to be resanded. Once you get below a certain level of sand in there, we could not promise the public that we were going to be cleaning the water as we should be. So it's really necessary for us to resand this. We met before the end of the year and we talked about ARPA funds, how we were going to use those ARPA funds that the city received. And I believe the city council in consensus selected the sand filter bed knowing that it needed to get done. So I put a bid package together before the end of the year. We put it out to bid. We received 1 bid, and that was from Big River Construction in the amount of $849,400. Normally we go and we do background checks on these folks to see if they do this type of work. Fortunately, they were the contractors that did filter bed number 1, so I know what their work level is like. I know their professionalism. They do a wonderful job. So in discussing this with with my water treatment plant manager and my other engineers, we believe we would recommend to the city council that they award this contract to Big River Construction in the amount shown. And I would be happy to answer any questions that you have regarding this project or the bid or anything else you want to talk about actually this evening.
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilor Hook.
Go ahead, please.
I just want to recognize Lance and the other staff that were involved in this for the money that they saved on not going through that process of the whole background check because you guys did know the work done. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Lance, a quick question from this end. How far are we away from having to do sand filter bed number 3?
You know, when I put this together, I thought I wrote that down. I think it looks like about the year 25, 26, and that's what I have in our 5-year capital improvement plan being done at that point in time. We have just over 2 feet in there. And if I look at 1 inch per year, the sand is removed through the cleaning process. I can probably get 4 or 5 more years out of it. So, you know, I put that together that year and forecasted a few years ago. So 25, 26 fiscal years, what I've got planned, that could move one way or the other, depending on our financial circumstances. But for right now, I've got it shown in the 25, 26 fiscal year.
Okay, thank you. Other questions?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Quigley.
Lance, what was the cost for bed number 1 when they did it?
Approximately $300,000 less than this.
So what's the main cost of the increase? Inflation?
Well, the Oregon Health Authority via the EPA several years ago requires that the folks that make this sand, produce the sand, are approved to a national standard. There's only one operator, one sand producer in the state of Oregon that produces that sand. That sand, that maker is Knife River. And they pretty much drive whatever cost they can get. And there's not much anybody can do about that because they're the only producer. I know Astoria, in 2018, Astoria, no, it was actually City of Salem, excuse me, Brian, Councilor Quigley. In 2018, when I went to put out the bid documents for the filter bed number 1, I reached out to the City of Salem because they had just gone through this process. And they got 2 bids. They got one from Knife River And they got one from the outfit in Northern California, which was 3 times the price of Knife River because they have all the trucking costs. So Knife River is who we have to use until some other sand provider, producer steps up, gets approved and qualified to the National Sanitarium Federation standards. That is what I can tell you.
Thank you for that explanation.
Lance, this could have been asked at just over coffee someplace, and I didn't. Where's the source of this stuff? Is it Sand Island on the mouth of the Columbia River?
I believe, I can't speak to 100%, but I believe that this just comes out of Knife River's pit down in Salem.
That much sand?
Well, yeah, they pull it out down there and they produce it and they truck it out here to their Knife River plant across the river there. They clean it and then they truck it over. I will say we're paying a little bit less than Springfield. They just had 3 of their filter beds or 2 of their filter beds done maybe 3 months ago. They paid a little bit more than we did per ton for that job. Obviously, it's trucking costs. We're right across the river, and so they don't have to truck it quite as far. It was the same contractor, though. Big River Construction did theirs as well. So I don't think their profit margins really changed that much. They want to be the sand filter bed kings, I guess, and so they pretty much know what it costs. They have the right equipment to do it. They bought that equipment, and so it's about they know how to do it, how long it takes them to do it. So their profit margins pretty much don't change much. So the profit margin here is via Knife River, and they may have learned something in 2018 that took them a whole lot longer than they thought it was going to take them to produce sand, and so they bumped the prices up accordingly. And you have to remember, all prices in construction have probably raised 10 to 12% in the last 2 years, just because of the COVID and everything. Everything's gone up 10 to 12% in the construction world.
Okay, all right.
Mayor, this is Councilor Hook.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just feel so much gratitude right now for your guys' work and the persistence that has been in making sure that this happens, even with COVID. There's something super unique that I think a lot of our community appreciates, and that is that we can literally turn on our faucet and pull our water right from the faucet. We don't need any filtering. That's what I have in my glass right here, and that's because our water is so good. So thank you for going out after this. It is more than what I would normally be comfortable with, but these are the prices of today. And thankfully, we have the ARPA funds that came in or are coming in. And so we can be grateful for that as well, that this is not going directly to the taxpayer, at least not directly from our community only. I mean, it is taxpayer dollars, but it's, kind of a all across the nation taxpayer dollars.
Okay, thank you. Other questions or thoughts? Did we have any public comment on this, Alyssa?
No, we did not, Mr. Mayor.
It seems like we kind of jumped right into discussion here from the staff report. Other council discussion on this?
The problem here is competition, as you all know. If there was a few more sand providers in the area, provide the competition, the price probably goes down. I don't know how much, but when you only have one provider, they pretty much set the number. And unfortunately, we're in a position that we don't have really a whole lot of leverage with this because we need it done.
Okay, right. I think everyone understands that.
Mr. Mayor, are you ready for?
Real quick question. Are we actively using filter bed number 2? I mean, are we using it all the time, even though that filter level is marginal?
We are. We're about, I don't know the exact number. We're usable right now. I would not have it online if it was even remotely possible that we were producing bad water. We're getting down there is what I will say. I don't know if I'd want to go another year or so with it the way it is.
Okay.
And we're mixing it with sand filter bed water number 1 or sand filter bed number 1 and number 3. So it's just a combined water into our clear well. So that cleans the water up as well. And as Councilor Page had mentioned, we're fortunate that we have a very clean water source that helps that. I know in the wintertime, we get turbidity at times, but for the most part, our water is very clean. As you all know, we've won the best tasting water in Oregon, 4 years running. We're going back again here in another month. Now that the COVID's over with, we're going to be taking our water back, and hopefully we'll start our new run. But we're just fortunate that we have a good clean water supply, and that helps quite a bit with the sand filter beds.
Okay. Thank you, Lance. Yeah. Other questions, thoughts, considerations on this? Under council discussion.
Mr. Mayor, if you're ready for a motion, I am happy to make one.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, this is Councilor Hook. I would like to make a motion that we award the contract to Big River Construction Incorporated in the amount of $849,400 to perform the work outlined in the contract documents. To move, let's see.
Where's the,
Does that work?
is that,
Yes.
yeah. Okay, there it is. Okay. So just one, to award the contract, Counselor, I was trying to find it in my script here. Go ahead and award the contract in that $149,400 amount to reconstruct sand filter bed number 2. That sound pretty close? I hope. Oh, is
Mr.
there a
Mayor,
second?
Mr.
Yes.
Mayor, this is Councilor McDonald. I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Paul. So I've got a motion and a second to award that contract for the sand filter bed number 2 resanding project, in the amount of $849,400. Okay? Discussion, please. Or when you're ready for a motion, for a call, we ready for council decision? Alyssa, would you go ahead and poll the council on this one, please?
Sure. Counselor Hook,
Yes.
Counselor Ort,
Yes.
Counselor Patty,
Yes.
Counselor Quigley,
Yes.
Counselor McDonald.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I can tell you that Public Works will work and strive as best we can to reduce that amount through the construction process, but I appreciate your support tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Lance. Okay. Next item on the agenda is an annexation application. This is actually the second consideration of it. For Gene Jones at 13601 Fern Ridge Road. Mr. Fleischman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Good evening. The issue I bring before you this evening, as the mayor just said, is the second consideration of ordinance 1043, which will annex approximately 19 acres of land into the city limits on the north side of Fern Ridge Road and assign medium density residential zoning to the property, as well as the natural resource overlay district within 100 feet of Lucas Ditch. At your January 3rd meeting, the council approved the first consideration of the ordinance after, I think, 5 various public hearings before you. and requested that the ordinance be modified and be brought back at this meeting. The modification to the ordinance was to include the applicant's latest conceptual plan for future development of the property into the ordinance itself. That has been done and is now Exhibit E. The draft copy of the ordinance that you have in your packet has a couple of lines highlighted in yellow that signify the changes from the draft that was approved at the January 3rd meeting. On page 2 of the ordinance, it is now referring to Exhibit E when it makes reference to the conceptual plan. And the only other change that was made to the body of the ordinance itself is changing the date to this evening's date. So with that, I will answer any questions that you may have. Otherwise, the staff recommendation is to approve the second consideration as revised.
Thank you, Dan. Questions, comments? Is there any public comment? Alyssa?
No, there is not, Mr. Mayor.
Council discussion then.
Mr. Mayor, this is Counselor Hook.
Sure, go ahead, please.
I just want to say that I feel like we have worked through this for so long and all of my questions have been answered, and I'm thankful for that. And I just am so appreciative of everyone involved and their patience with the process, because I am just overjoyed by the outcome of collaboration that happened. So thank you all.
Thank you. Very nice. Other thoughts and questions on this? We'll give this a moment to settle everyone's concerns and excitement over this and go to a some kind of council decision. We've certainly given it enough time. Go ahead, please.
Mr. Mayor, if you're ready, if everyone's ready, I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay, go ahead, please.
This is Counselor Hook. I move to enact the revised draft of ordinance number 1043 as presented.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor, this is Counselor Patty. I'll second that motion.
I've got a motion. Thank you. A motion and a second to approve the second consideration of ordinance 1043 as revised. And is there any discussion? If not, let's go to a decision. Alyssa, would you poll the council, please?
Sure. Counselor McDonald?
Yes.
Counselor Quigley?
Yes.
Counselor Ort? Oh, I couldn't hear you, but I think you said, I saw your lips say yes. I can't hear you now still, and you're unmuted, but I can see that you're.
There she
Yes,
thumbs
she's
up.
saying
Yes.
yes. Counselor Patty
Yes.
and Counselor Hook.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For the time being, that's behind us. Yeah, okay. Communications from city staff. Anything, Alyssa?
I don't have anything this evening.
Okay. Communications from mayor and council. I don't have anything else this evening. Any of the councilors have anything? One of the things I'd like to see, I do have something. One of the things I'd like to see, and listen, we'll put it on a future agenda, have some of these recent appointments to boards and groups maybe come and be introduced to the council. We haven't done that for a while. And I think it'd be a good thing to just have people come down and say hello and let us see who they are and tell them we're excited about them wanting to be part of helping to make decisions in the community. Okay. Anything else? Well, it's only 8 o'clock, but if you folks are willing, we can quit for the evening. And let's do that then. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful day and stay well. Good night.
Have a good night, everyone.